Today's talk is titled, Call Your Mother, Buddha Never Said That, or a Dharma Talk for Mother's Day, to be delivered by Reverend Kerry Kiyohara. Kerry Kiyohara is the resident minister of Makawao Buddhist Temple on Maui, serving the Honpa Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii. Kerry was Tokudo ordained in 2016 and graduated from Chuo Bukkyo Gakuin Seminary in Kyoto in 2018, receiving Kyoshi certification as a teacher in the Jodo Shinshu Hongwanji tradition. Kerry previously worked as an executive, consultant, and writer in Los Angeles, Tokyo, Beijing, Shanghai, and Honolulu. Kerry graduated with BA and MBA degrees from the University of Southern California. Kerry speaks American English natively, fluent professional Japanese, basic Spanish, survival Chinese, but struggles daily with Hawaiian Creole English, that kind pidgin, yeah? Kerry is married to Mimi, and they are delighted to be grandparents of a 13-year-old granddaughter and a 5-year-old grandson. Reverend Kerry.
Please unmute yourself.
There we go. Sorry, I couldn't get to the switch to turn my microphone on. Good morning, everyone. And mahalo nui loa. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you this morning on the causes and conditions that allow us this opportunity to share time and space together in this moment, this day of an unrepeatable life, are rare and wondrous indeed. In the Hongwanji tradition, we put our hands together in Gassho, in Anjali. We bow our head in gratitude, and we say, Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Buddha. Kindness and understanding beyond words. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Well, today's Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Let me share the slides. We're going to bring this up. Let's see, it's this one. Okay, it looks like the slides are there.
Okay, we're good. Okay,
there we go. Actually, before I get started, I'll share a joy. Today just happens to be our 40th wedding anniversary. So for everyone out there who said, you're way too young to get married, hey, still here. But I would like to thank my wife for putting up with me for 40 years. So yeah, so again, Mother's Day, and here we go. So the Buddha never said, call your mom, but he probably meant something like that. So, hi Mom, happy Mother's Day. That's actually me and my late brother and my younger sister. The first photo is about 1963, 64, and the one on the right, the other photo is about 2023, so kind of an interval there. But let's begin with the talk. So, Don did a lovely reading of this poem, which really does make you think, right? You think, okay, mom and dad, okay, there's two, but they had moms and dads too, so I've got two sets of grandparents. And his insight is we go back 10 generations, right? There's 1,000 people who have to meet, fall in love, get married, make babies, right? And this all leads to me, 10 generations. And he then, doubles down and says, when you go back 20 generations, it's 1 million people that lead to me. So if we look at it that way, right, so again, Mitsuo Aida is very famous as a calligrapher who broke the mode for the style of calligraphy. But more important, his Zen insights. He was a Zen practitioner. So if I was a Zen master, I'd read this poem, and I could simply say, sit on that for 45 minutes. But I'm a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist priest and a Hongwanji temple minister, so I have to talk, and you have to listen to me, whether you But again, the key insight in this poem is if you go back 20 generations, right? There's 1 million mothers and fathers who came before us, which means there's 500,000, there's more than 500,000 mothers who came before me. So think about that. So when we say Happy Mother's Day, we're expressing gratitude not only to our own mother, right, but her mother and her mother's mother and her mother's 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 mother, all the way back, ad infinitum and to the infinity. So today is Happy Mother's Day indeed. So this morning, let's just explore Buddhism and moms, the role of mothers in Buddhism. Let's begin with the mother of Siddhartha Gautama, the crown prince who becomes the Buddha. Now, in the Honganji version of the story, the Buddha's birth, we don't talk about the following aspect, which appears in the more traditional tellings of the story. So did you know that the mother of the Buddha, Queen Maya, she dies 7 days after giving birth to Prince Siddhartha? So thus, Siddhartha grows up without the mother who gave birth to him. So the human being born as Siddhartha, the crown prince of the most powerful kingdom in India of the time, he learns the truth of impermanence and the reality as it is of human life and end of life. So Siddhartha is raised by his mother's sister, his auntie, Prajapati, and of course he's the crown prince. So he has many, many, many servants to take care of him. He gets the best clothes, he's got the best teachers, he's got the best of everything. All of his needs are taken care of from infancy. But one could argue that Siddhartha grew up, he grows up not knowing a mother's love. Here's a little bit of Buddhist trivia. So if you're at a cocktail party or just having a talk with people, you can pop this one on people. Did you know, right, that Prajapati, Auntie Prajapati, she plays a central role in persuading the Buddha, right, to allow women into the path to awakening. So when Siddhartha awakens to reality as it is, becoming the Buddha, becoming the awakened one, the Buddha is said to have hesitated before sharing his insights and truths to anyone because the Dharma teachings are so subtle and profound. So legend says that Brahma, the principal deity, the principal god of Brahmanism, the dominant religious and social order of Siddhartha's time, that Brahma had to come and convince the Buddha to share the Dharma teachings with everyone, which he does, except for women. At the time, women were thought to be defiled, impure, and thus not capable of becoming awakened. It is said that Auntie Prajapati had to make 3 pilgrimages over vast distances. This was 2,600 years ago. So, traveling hundreds of miles is not a trivial thing. So she had to make 3 pilgrimages to convince the Buddha to allow women onto the path of enlightenment, the opportunity for enlightenment. So I like to imagine that Auntie Prajapati is like an Hawaiian auntie, and she grabs her slipper and she whacks the Buddha across the head. Bang! I raised you, you owe me, to convince the Buddha to open up the path to women. But because of Auntie Prajapati, Buddhism becomes the first major religion that allows women on the path of enlightenment. They could become monks, they could be ordained as priests. So, Happy Mother's Day to Auntie Prajapati. Let's talk about Shinran. Now, Shinran is revered as the founder of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, the true essence of the Japanese Pure Land way. Now, we don't know too much about Shinran's mother, although we know she was of noble birth and she was married to Lord Arinori, who was a high-ranking government official, and thus is traditionally referred to as Lady Eshin, which is her first name. It is said, however, this is for the mom, so Lady Arinori, I made a mistake in the script here. So it's said that Shinran enters the monastery at Mount Hiei, the center of Buddhism in the 12th century, and becomes a monk. So he shaves his head and takes the vows of a monk at age 9. Right? So typically that would mean he's been orphaned. Right? Now there is some historical evidence that indicate his father and brothers were also monks. So it's possible that Shinran's mother became a Buddhist nun. which was typical of the time. When you retire, you become a Buddhist nun. But there's no definitive evidence of that. But without a doubt, Shinran would not exist, right? The founder of our tradition would not exist without his mom, Lady Arinori. So happy Mother's Day to Lady Arinori. Okay, so let's talk about Eshin, sometimes referred to as the nun Eshin or Lady Eshin, who is Shinran's wife and the mother of his 6 children. Now, Lady Eshin was of noble birth, we know this. She was highly educated, and she is the first woman to openly marry and have children with a priest in the 12th century in Japan. Now, why is this in theory, right? In theory, any priest is a monk following monastic precepts, including celibacy. But from historical evidence, we know that the major temples, the really big temples at the time, had hereditary lines of succession, which means, of course, the son takes over from the dad. Hey, wait a minute. Dad is a celibate monk. How did that, well, I guess it's a Buddhist miracle. But even during, you just didn't talk about it, right? It was just one of those things that people knew was going on, but no, they're monks. But right, to break that convention, to openly marry, a monk, is remarkable. And we have to note that when Eshin and Shinran get married, Shinran had already been exiled. He'd been given a criminal name. He was convicted of heresy, essentially. And they banned the Nembutsu practice. They banned this practice that we do. And he had his license to be a priest. You have to have a government license to be a priest. So this was all taken away. And still, Lady Eshin, marries Shinran. So for a woman of her social class, this marriage would have been, absolutely scandalous. And thus, we know, right, Eshin was brave enough and strong enough to marry Shinran, a defrocked priest with a criminal name, and to have children with him. Now, so much of what we know about Shinran's life is through the letters that Eshin wrote to her daughter and children, and her friends, which proved that Shinran was not a myth or a legend created over the centuries, but it was a real person. Because before 1921, when the letters of Eshin were discovered and authenticated, the popular academic theory of the time was that Shinran was a legend. It was a myth. It was created and embellished over the centuries, but he never actually existed. So Eshin's letters provide documentary evidence that Shinran's a real person, and it destroys this academic theory that all the Monshus, to preserve their power, they just made up this legend about Shinran. Now, we know from the writing style and vocabulary used in her letters, in Eshin's letters, that she's very highly educated. For the time, 12th century, basically nobody's educated, nobody's literate except priests and nobles and that sort of thing. And we also know she's a very passionate follower of the Nembutsu path. The letters show that Eshin respected Shinran greatly and revered him as a manifestation of Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, known in Japanese as Seishi Bosatsu. So she saw him as a bodhisattva, ready to become Buddha, but holding off becoming Buddha to help other people. Now, it could also be argued that Eshin and Shinran failed as parents because their eldest son, he claimed that he had received some secret teachings and that the true essence of the Jodo Pure Land Way could only be taught by him. Now, this created such a big disturbance, the government had to step in, and you don't want to do that. The government steps in, and ultimately Shinran disowns his eldest son for spreading heresy. A different talk, but in the later years of Shinran's life, Eshin returns to Echigo because she is responsible for the family's estate and domain, right? And because she has to take over, and so she's obviously a skilled manager of her family's estate and domain, and also lets her youngest daughter Kakushin to take care of Shinran. At this point, he's in his 70s, 80s, 90s. He dies at age 90, 70s, and 80s, which is phenomenally old for the 12th century. So this allows Shinran to return to Kyoto and complete the research and complete the writing of his doctrinal masterwork, the teaching, practice, Shinjin, faith, and realization of the Pure Land Way. So we have these big, thick books in translation, everything that Shinran ever wrote, but he writes this monumental masterpiece, the Kyogyo Shinsho, which traces the lineage of the Pure Land tradition, proves, through the sutras, through scriptures, that the Nembutsu path is actually really Buddhism. Remember, the Nembutsu path was banned. It was not Buddhism. So and here's becomes the interesting part. When Shinran dies at age 90, Kakushin, right, his youngest daughter, engineers the creation of what becomes the Honganji, the largest Buddhist denomination in Japan and around the world. Now, why is this kind of strange? Because Shinran is actually quite famous for saying, when I die, throw my body into the Kamogawa River and let the fish feed on it. He didn't want to have a mausoleum. He didn't want to have this thing. So what does her daughter do? She makes a mausoleum, which becomes a shrine, becomes a place of worship, which becomes a temple, which becomes the Honganji. And she also engineers, I think this was the clever part, she engineers it so that her descendants become the chief priest, become the protector of Jodo Shinshu, what we call the Monshu, the chief priest of the Honganji. So every descendant, every Monshu, every chief priest that we have, including number 25, who's our current Monshu, is a direct line descendant of Lady Kakushin, and thus Lady Eshin, and thus Lady Arinori. Right, so it's no exaggeration to say that without Shinran's mom, Lady Arinori, Shinran's wife and the mother of their children, Lady Eshin, and her daughter, Lady Kakushin, there would be no Honganji today. So happy Mother's Day to Lady Arinori, Lady Eshin, and Lady Kakushin. So here's a very interesting writing by Shinran, and the first line always surprises people. As for me, Shinran, I have never said the Nembutsu, even once, for the repose of my departed father and mother. End quote. So the Nembutsu is Namo Amida Butsu. It's saying Namo Amida Butsu out loud. But it's also the realization of faith, the mind of no doubt, even in the absence of any evidence. I mean, Shinran is famous for saying it's inconceivable and ineffable. But you reach a spiritual transformation where you have conviction, faith, the mind of no doubt. That when you die, you go to the Pure Land, through the compassion of Amida Buddha. There, because you're free of a human body, you're free of human ego, you become a Buddha, you return in oneness to this world to show other people how to get there. So again, many people would say, oh, Namo Amida Butsu is your practice, but Shinran comes straight out and says, I've never said Namo Amida Butsu for the repose of my departed father and mother. Quote, for all sentient beings, without exception, have been our parents and brothers and sisters in the course of countless lives in the many states of existence. On attaining Buddhahood after this present life, we can save every one of them. End quote. So Shinran goes on to explain that the true essence or the Shinshu of the Jodo Pure Land Way is this. We're saying the Nembutsu indeed a good act in which I strove through my own powers, then I might direct the merit thus gained towards saving my father and mother. But this is not the case, end quote. So Shinran's teaching is saying that the Nembutsu, the path of Nembutsu, saying Namo Amida Butsu, and realizing faith, this is not a self-power practice. This is not something that I do and thus I gain merit or I gain virtue. Because the theory at the time is that you do merit-building activities, and you can use this merit to save your mother and father, for example. And he goes on to say, quote, if, however, simply abandoning self-power, we quickly attain enlightenment into the Pure Land, we will be able to save by means of transcendent powers, first, those who we have close karmic relations, whatever karmic suffering they may have sunk into in the 6 realms through the 4 modes of birth. End quote. So giving up self-power practices. So in other words, giving up the belief that because I say Nam Amida Butsu, or because I meditate, or because I read the sutras, or I chant, or I deny myself things, which is with all due respect to people who follow those practices, it's just saying that if you're not able to, and you give that up, you give up the ego-based belief that I can do this, and you rely solely, wholeheartedly, without doubt, on Amida's great compassionate vow to save all sentient beings, to save all people, to rely on other power, a power that is outside of yourself, that's not me. And thus, when we die, we're born into the Pure Land. We become Buddha because we're free of a human body, we're free of human ego, and we return in oneness with Amida to this world of human confusion and delusion to guide others to birth into the Pure Land. So this state of relying solely, wholeheartedly, free of doubt on Amida for the great enlightenment to come is called Shinjin, which you could translate as the entrusting heart, or the heart of entrusting. And Shinran teaches that is this Shinjin, that the faith of Shinjin, that is the true cause of your birth into the Pure Land. So you can say Nam Amida Butsu 10,000 times every day, but it's because you have the faith of Shinjin that you were born into the Pure Land, not because you say Nam Amida Butsu 10,000 times a day. So Shinjin then becomes, right, this heart of entrusting, becomes less of an intellectual understanding of Amida's salvific, working in this unrepeatable life, but it becomes a spiritual or emotional transformation. It is a return to the heart of compassion, as in this hymn that's written by Shinran Shonin, which is this one. So this is from the hymns on the Mahathamaprata. Quote, when a sentient being thinks on Amida just as a child thinks on its mother, they indeed see the Tathagata, who is never distant, both in the present and in the future. End quote. So let's break this down a little bit more easily understood words. So sentient beings are self-aware, or aware of their self. So for example, human beings, animals, most living organisms have some sense of self. And even if it's just survival instinct, right, you protect yourself. Now, in the Mahayana stream of Buddhism, it is believed, it is taught that Buddha nature, the potential to become a Buddha, is inherent in all forms of life. So think on Buddha is the literal translation of Nembutsu, to think on Amida, to think on the Buddha. So Namo Amida Butsu is an expression which just means thinking of the Buddha, being mindful of the Buddha, of Amida's presence in our lives. So when you say Namo Amida Butsu, when you walk the path of Nembutsu, when you think on Amida, right, just as a child thinks of its mother, a child thinking of its mother, you see the Tathagata, you see Amida in the present and in the future, and you see that Amida is never distant, is never apart from you. You're not alone. So when you say Namo Amida Butsu, just like a child thinks of its mother, you see Amida is everything, everywhere, all at once. So Amida is with you. It's never distant, in the present and in the future. Namo Amida Butsu. So it is through birth into the Pure Land, we are free of the human ego, we're free of the limitations of human body, we are one with Amida, and we can save everyone, everywhere, at any time. Just as a note, the altar here is a physical representation of the Pure Land. So one of these days I should probably give a talk about and give you a tour of the inside of the altar to explain the symbolism of all these pieces and what they mean and why we have them. So maybe we'll put that down for the next one. But when you start thinking of Amida as a child thinks of its mother, you begin to really see, Amida is the Buddha of immeasurable life. No matter how long it takes, the heart of great compassion is with you. and will guide you to birth into the Pure Land, becoming a Buddha. You begin to see that Amida is the Buddha of immeasurable light. There's nowhere where the unhindered light of wisdom does not shine. So even if you try to run away from yourself, you really can't. And no matter how far you run or where you try to hide, if you're trying to hide behind your money, your power, your wealth, the billion-dollar home or whatever it is, there's no way. There's no place where the light of wisdom doesn't shine. So even if you have, $1 bazillion and everything is great, the light of wisdom shines on you. You go, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. One would like to think that's where it goes. So the key question then is, how do we let go? How do we let go of our attachment to this egocentric sense of self that we so desperately cling to? We're just clinging to this idea of self, even when it creates so much stress in our lives. And importantly, it creates stress in other people's lives. Right? When I act selfishly, when I say it's me, I'm denying all the existence of other people, the needs of other people. And yet, because I'm human, I'm born with a heart of compassion. So I feel for the suffering of other people. But I can, delude myself. I can teach myself to ignore it. Well, I used to work in advertising, right? If you're feeling stressed out, drink this. And you can relieve your stress. We sell stuff. We create stress. This is another talk. Advertising is designed to create stress in your head so that you want to buy the product that will relieve the stress, but another story. But think about it, right? How do we get the ego self out of the way? The ego is what keeps us, from walking in front of a bus. Right? Self-preservation instinct is fundamental to human survival. So how do we get this ego out of the way, even though it's kind of intrinsically what it means to be human, and to open the eyes of wisdom, to see reality as it is? How do we return to the heart of a child? How do we return to the heart of a child? So we go back to this hymn. Just like a child thinks of its mother, just like a child thinks of its mother, just like a child thinks of its 500,000 mothers, right? Again, taking that insight going back, wow, there's 500,000 moms who come to me. And that's the result of me. Now let's flip that around, right? If you go 20 generations after me, there's 1 million people, right? So everything I think and say and do in this moment of this day of an unrepeatable life creates karmic consequences that ripple through time that I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. And yet we know that this is true because 500,000 moms, 1 million moms and dads led to me. Oh, gee, maybe I should try my best to become a good ancestor, to become that good ancestor who results in the next me. No, that's the wrong way to put it, but the next person. Because when we truly start seeing this infinite interconnectedness of all life, right? Everything is connected. Everything is dependent upon everything. When we experience Amida as great love and great compassion working in your life, in my life, everywhere, everything, all at once, past, present, future, you experience this profound sense of connectedness, oneness, this conviction that we're not alone. We're never alone. So Namo Amida Butsu is always there. Amida Buddha has always been there. Is always calling out to everyone, everywhere, equally, with the mind of non-discrimination. Compassion is here. If you need help, here's a helping hand. The close-up of the standing statue of Amida, you will see a right hand in this gesture, saying compassion is here. The left hand is extended forward, saying if you need a helping hand, compassion is here. If you look at it from the side, the statue of Amida is always leaning forward, saying compassion is here, helping hand. And that's what Namo Amida Butsu is. this hymn from Shinran. When a quote, when a person realizes the mind of non-discrimination, that attainment is, quote, the state of regarding each being as one's only child. This is none other than Buddha nature, and we will awaken to it on reaching the land of peace. End quote. Namo Amida Butsu. The words of Shinran Shonin. The land of peace is a reference to the Pure Land. So this very interesting, right? The state of regarding each being as one's only child. That's brilliant. It's quite profound, right? It's aspirational. But it's hard to realize with oneself. It's easy to point to other people and say, well, you should, realize the state of regarding each being as one's only child. But when in honest reflection, it's very hard. It's very hard to treat everyone as if they were your only child. Why? Because we're human. We're utterly human. And this is not something that we can achieve on our own. We can't achieve this through self-power practice. As much as we would like to think that we're compassionate, it's overwhelming at times, just the amount of suffering, even here in Hawaii, right? The amount of homelessness that we have. These are our fellow human beings, and yet we tend to pretend they're not there. That's the easy way. That's the easy way. Other people, try their best to help and to do things, to feed the hungry, to house the homeless, to bring comfort to people in suffering. And yet, in your heart of hearts, it's not enough. It'll never be enough. And it can become very overwhelming. And thus, through self-power, relying only on my power, it becomes very, very difficult to achieve this state of regarding each being as one's only child. So Shinran, Joda Shinshu teaching, is not telling us to strive to attain the state of regarding each being as one's only child. Rather, it's describing how Amida views us, right? This is how Amida views me, right? With this great compassion. Namo Amida Butsu is for me because I am karma's fool. I'm a karmic idiot. I'm standing here, actually I'm sitting here, preaching to everyone, to other people, when I should be preaching to myself. I should be preaching to myself. I've studied, I've studied enough. I passed the tests. I got the pieces of paper. I am an ordained priest of Joda Shinshu Hongan-jiha. I'm assigned as an overseas missionary. I've been assigned to the Hawaii mission, and I am the resident minister of Makua Honganji. I'm a Buddhist priest. You think that somehow that makes me special. I like to think I'm special. But in honesty, I still get angry. I still have this huge ego, which you can poke very easily. I still hold grudges. I still criticize other people while ignoring my own faults. If I'm honest with myself, I'm just absolutely, utterly human. Utterly human. As much as I like to think I'm pretty smart guy, I'm not capable of shaving my head and becoming a monk. That's just not going to happen. So how silly, right? I have these insights. I'm supposed to be teaching Buddhism to people, and yet when I look at myself, I'm not there. How stupid? How stupid is that, right? Or as Shinran said, how lamentable? How lamentable? And that's kind of sad. But again, that's how Amida is looking at Kerry, going, dude, you're never going to do it on your own. Your ego's too big. Compassion is here. Let me give you a helping hand. And yet, right, it is this self-awareness of my ego, of my limitations, my weaknesses. Right? All of this self-awareness comes to me because of Amida working in my life. So, here we go. So my mother is the youngest of 7 brothers and sisters, and grandma, her mom, Grandma Nakawatase, was known as a fiercely passionate follower of the Nembutsu. She was a very popular speaker. People would bring her in to talk. She would confront the bishop and say, can you say Namo Amida Butsu in faith? Which apparently scared a lot of people. Now my father was the 3rd son of a classically nice bachan. Bachan is kind of a cute word they use for grandma. I guess it's like nana or something like that in other cultures. But bachan, you saw grandma, She was always smiling. She's on the right side of the picture. She's always smiling, always laughing, always cooking something, and always giving the grandkids sweets. So, growing up, I always wanted to be like Ba-chan, but hey, I ended up being a Buddhist preacher, just like Grandma Nakawatase, who actually scared me as a kid, because even in this photograph, you can see she has this really piercing stare, which is kind of scary. And her house always smelled like incense, but also mothballs, which is kind of a weird combination. Okay, so I know very little about the mothers of my grandmothers. I think about that. How much do you know about your great-grandmother or your great-great-grandmother? Hopefully we know something, but it's kind of distant, right? And yet, I stand here, or I sit here, because literally countless mothers gave birth and raised kids who went on to be mothers of mothers of mothers of mothers. So that insight, that knowledge, that understanding of reality as it is, it forces me to realize the truth, right? The Dharma, the truth. The reality is what I think and say and do today has karmic consequences far beyond what I can even imagine. So today, on Mother's Day, think on Mom, right? Think on Amida. If your mom is still here, still with us, please go visit your mom or call your mom. And if your mom has passed from this world and has been born into the Pure Land, say Namo Amida Butsu in joy, say Namo Amida Butsu in gratitude, and be Namo Amida Butsu in other people's lives. Happy Mother's Day. Namo.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much for listening this morning, and may your day be filled with aloha.
I like the rooster.
Yes, very famous Makwao chickens here.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.